Madam President.
The senior senator from Illinois.
Thank you. Madam President, 7 weeks ago on September the 21st, the United States Senate on a bipartisan basis gathered with Ukrainian President Zelensky in the old Senate chamber. We don't often use that chamber. It's often for incidents that become embedded in history, and this was one of them. It was an historic moment. Many things were said about the courage of the Ukrainian people and the heroism of the troops fighting Russian President Vladimir Putin's unjust war. But I recall one particular plea made by President Zelensky, and he repeated it, so it was clear he wanted us to remember. I'll stress what he said, quote, "Without the continued financial support of the United States and NATO, we will lose this war." He was unequivocal. Secretary of Defense Austin told me clearly at last week's Senate Appropriations Committee hearing that he agreed with Zelensky. And Secretary of State Blinken added that such assistance is critical in thwarting not just Putin, but aggressors around the world who are watching and gauging our sustained commitment. I agree completely. Looking at the world today, I do not believe it is a stretch to say freedom is currently under siege and fighting for its future. Right now, the several democracies across the globe are fighting against tyrannical power, and in some cases autocratic governments, and in others terrorist organizations that seek to undermine the global order. But this much is clear. Democratic values are under siege, and the United States and our generation has a responsibility to act. 2 weeks ago, President Biden requested $106 billion in supplemental funding for national security. This includes money to help supply Ukraine with weapons to continue its valiant fight against Russian aggression. It includes money to help Israel defend itself against Hamas, which on October 7th perpetrated the largest attack against Jewish people in any single day since the Holocaust. And importantly, it also includes billions of dollars to support humanitarian needs across those conflict zones in the world, including as the crisis grows in Gaza. Because as important as it is to support nations like Ukraine in their struggle against tyranny, it is equally as important to support innocent civilians who so often become collateral damage and bear the brunt of suffering during periods of conflict. At the Appropriations Committee hearing last week, Secretaries Blinken and Austin underscored the necessity of this funding request. They made clear that it is critical to deliver urgent national security priorities as laid out in the President's rhetoric. These challenges facing the world are interrelated, so it's important that we deliver aid in one unified package that speaks to America's values abroad. I asked Secretaries Blinken and Austin about the recent visit by the terrorist organization Hamas leadership to, believe it or not, Putin in Moscow. Secretary Blinken was blunt. Putin is allied with any effort that may distract the United States from the war in Ukraine or that undermines democracy and the rule of law. The Secretary added that other malign actors are watching closely to assess America's reaction and resolve. That is why one comprehensive supplemental that can address all of these interconnected global needs is the only way forward. When asked about the United States' role in the world, President Biden explained that we have not only a financial responsibility, but the moral responsibility to support democracies worldwide. I agree. Right now, the global community faces profound challenges, the outcomes of which will reverberate to every corner of the world for decades to come. As a global superpower, America has a central role to play in defending freedom. It is not only the right thing to do, it's a smart thing to do. Last week, the House passed a Republican-led plan to provide billions of dollars only to Israel, tragically ignoring this call for leadership. Madam President, I just challenge everyone to take a look at how the Republicans put together this package, even this package to aid Israel. The House bill would cynically cut funding from the Internal Revenue Service that is being used to have auditors catch wealthy tax cheaters in America. The House Speaker wants to cut that. You and I represent thousands of Illinoisans, good families who know their tax obligations. They're not happy about them, but they face them and deal with them honestly. Only a handful of people are misusing their power and their money to avoid tax responsibility. We need to stop that. They need to pay their fair share of taxes, particularly the wealthy among us. So how does the House Republican leadership pay for aid to Israel? Eliminates auditors in the Internal Revenue Service who are trying to catch these tax cheats. What are they thinking? And incidentally, because that means that the auditors are not recovering money for our Treasury that is owed to it, they add to the deficit. This bunch of fiscal hawks, given a chance for the first real act of the new speaker, decide to find a way to avoid holding tax cheaters responsible and adding to the national deficit. They need some work over there. That bill is a non-starter that Putin must be enjoying. Protecting our national security interests and defending American values will take a bipartisan effort, not political games. As such, I urge my colleagues to swiftly pass this funding package and help reassure the global community that as long as there is the United States of America, we will be standing for freedom across the world. Madam President, I yield the floor. Suggest quorum.